All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Demystifying Facebook Business Manager 4-week training program. This is lesson number 2, Business Manager Quick Start. I hope you've gotten a lot out of the first lesson, did your homework. Let's get ready to roll. So, for some of you, you may not have attended the first one or you signed up after the first one occurred. So I just want to make sure you all know how this is going to work. Generally, it's about 60 minutes plus Q&A or including Q&A. It really depends. Last week, I think it was an hour and 33 minutes, which is on the longer side. I don't think we should expect many of these to go beyond an hour and a half, but somewhere in that 60 to 90 minutes period is what to expect. A lot of it depends on the amount of Q&A we have. But we will start with presentation slides and key takeaways. We will have weekly homework assignments that we'll discuss as well. And so the bottom line, don't be afraid to ask lots of questions. We had lots and lots of questions last week. And do your best to stay on topic. And nothing against the questions we had last week. We kind of ventured a little bit away from Business Manager at times, but we really want to make sure that we stay on that topic. Of course, there will be a recording. Hopefully, you checked out the first recording, but allow up to 24 hours for it to be ready. It should be ready within a few hours, though, today. When it is ready, it'll be emailed to you, and it'll be available at powerhittersclub.com. So that's going to include the video, which obviously includes the audio of that, too. Separate audio if you just want to listen to the audio on the way to work or something. Embedded slides, which is something new that we haven't done in the past. The quick outline of what was discussed, and relevant links that should help you as well that were related to that lesson. So be on the lookout for that. This is a new photo that I was expecting. So Andrew Foxwell is leading these lessons. I'm co-hosting, and he changed the photo this week to a picture of his dog. So that's awesome. If you're not familiar with Andrew, you can follow him on Twitter at Andrew Foxwell, foxwelldigital.com/cred to learn more about all the things that he has done before. He is CEO and co-founder of Foxwell Digital. He manages that with his wife Gracie. He's personally managed $10 million in Facebook and Instagram spend for Fortune 500 companies. And he's also a regular guest on my podcast. So if you listen to my podcast, you're like, oh, yeah, I know who this guy is. It's been over 2 years now. I think he's been on the show. And he's also written a few blog posts for me, too. And he's a host of E-Commerce Influence Podcast. He's been quoted in New York. He's a big timer. He's a big timer, basically. And what makes him especially cool is that he loves the Green Bay Packers and Golden Doodles and some other stuff. So that's Andrew, someone I trust and respect. So yeah, he's the first person I thought of putting this together. So he and Gracie put together the training itself, and for the most part, I'll be sitting back and watching with the rest of you. Now, before we get rolling, if you have any questions from last week that we have not yet addressed, let's talk about those now. So just kind of a quick recap of what last week's assignment was first of all to review the first lesson, all the links associated with it. Second, take a personal tour of Business Manager if you could. If you're not signed up with Business Manager yet, that is fine. And then finally, make a list of questions that you want to have answered in coming sessions. Some of this could wait until the end of today's lesson, but if there's anything that you want to make sure that you get answered now, we can address that. So let me know. Okay, well, I think we're ready to roll then. Andrew, whenever you're ready, I think you can take over.
All right. Well, welcome everybody back. Super glad to have you here. I promise to bring you won't do the bio every week. John's very kind to keep that in there. Definitely not needed. You guys know who I am, and I'm honored that you're here. Really, really meaningful. I thought I'd put the photo of the good old golden doodle in there for you to hopefully bring a smile to your face. That was the dog about 15 minutes before I got on this. She just living the dog's life, my friends. So welcome to kind of getting into the session number 2. We're going to get into really now how we're going to set things up from scratch, right? So we had some great questions from last week. I believe one of them was from Lauren. Shout out if you're on here saying, hey, look, I've got to transfer all my assets over into Business Manager. And I'm really, really wanting to know how to do that. So we're going to talk about setting it up from scratch, talk about adding employees, setting up what's called a primary page, which a lot of people don't actually even know that you need. So we're going to talk about that. All right, adding assets. So kind of getting into how do you do that? What's the difference between how you add those assets? And similar to pages, we're going to talk about the kind of ad account page difference. And then we're going to talk about requesting versus adding, plus the Business Manager ID, which is super exciting. We're going to get into the 3-step process and that homework assignment and what's next, and we'll get to the Q&A. I do want to say right as we're getting started, just honestly, thank you so much for signing up for the course and also for the great questions last week. I really enjoyed that. John and I were talking about how great it was actually just to talk about a whole myriad of things. So I just wanted to say thank you because it was really valuable to hear kind of what was really on your mind. And we'll continue to design the program exactly around the questions and the most common things that we hear from you as the lesson goes on as well. So I made actually some changes to this one based on what I heard from you last week. So I want you to know that kind of that we're building it that way. So it's really important. So I appreciate it. So hope everybody's having a great day. Let's get into it. All right, so setting up the Business Manager, basically, you go to business.facebook.com, right? So let's just say you've never set it up and you want to set up the Business Manager from scratch. This is the place that you start. It's important to keep in mind before you start setting up the Business Manager, here's some main questions, okay? So each Business Manager has a name. So what do you want that Business Manager name to be? What makes the most sense, okay? And the next question is, who in your organization do you want to be the admins? Who are the people you want to have the keys? And we talked about this a little bit last week and kind of touched on it. So just these are really important things to think about. What employees do you want to bring in? So who needs to be involved in this? And as you'll see today, we'll talk a little bit about this, but many times it's more people than potentially you thought you wanted to be involved in it. So at what permission levels are you going to bring them in as? So naming that Business Manager, ideally, this should be the official name of your business or very close to it, okay? And here's why this matters. This matters because basically, this is what your people are going to be seeing when they connect in with you, and we'll talk about that. So it should be the name of your business and not your personal name. So when a client is adding you or when a client is reviewing things and saying, okay, who's connected, it's really great if you have that named the name of your business. So in my Business Manager, the name of it is Foxwell Digital LLC, which is the name of my business. Changing the name of it later, it's an option, a little bit difficult. So choose wisely on the name. I think that's an important thing just to make sure that you're setting the right foundation. So when you come in here, this is what it says, Business Manager name. When you hit create, this is the first thing it asks you. It says, all right, what do you want to name it? And so you basically, Facebook says right off the bat, the business name will be shown to all employees. It also is shown to agencies or to other partners you're working with and can't contain special characters. So that's important to understand. Now, when you come in here, the next thing you do is you create your business profile. Okay, so you go in, you create the Business Manager, you name it, and you create the business profile. So use, first of all, your real name, not abbreviated, right? So this is what people will see. They'll see that an action was taken under Foxwell Digital or from the agency Foxwell Digital, and they can actually see the name of the person who did it from that organization. So it's important that both of those are correct. We recommend using your work email, because this is where all the notifications for this Business Manager will go. Now, some people have this set up a lot differently. Some people say, I don't really mind getting some of these notifications. And actually in the third lesson, we talk about actually customizing notifications, which is I know sounds like a boring topic, but I promise actually it's very helpful because otherwise you start getting all these notifications, your business grows and you're like, what is all this? And actually, I tell you, last week I had a client that contacted me and they'd had so many notifications, they missed one where they had some policy violations and one of their accounts got banned. So that's a problem, right? So we recommend using that work email and connecting into that. Now, there's nuances in why you'd want to use your work email versus your personal email. So you can use your work email or the personal. It's really a personal preference. And here's some things. This is actually from Facebook Direct, one of the most common issues that they run into, because people say, I do want to use my work email, but it doesn't seem to be connecting. Right. So if you do run into that issue, this is the process that you have to run through. And this is, again, very nuanced, but important to understand. So you've got to log into Facebook using that email and password you normally use. Click at the right top, go to settings, contact, add that other email. Okay. Enter the password, save the changes, log into the personal Facebook account, and then return to your email invitation and try accepting again. So that's one of the top issues that Facebook runs into. People say, I tried using my work email, it doesn't work. And it turns out that actually this is the way to solve that. So a lot of things you'll notice, and I hope that you will check out in today's lesson. It's good that this is recorded because there's going to be a lot of walkthrough of things that I hope you'll refer back to. And hopefully my voice isn't too annoying to hear multiple times. So hopefully it's soothing enough to say, yes, business manager, you will get through this. It's not a problem. So that's kind of the nuance between work email versus your personal email. So now you've gone through, you created the name of your business manager. All right. Then you created and connected in your name and your email. So it brings you into the home screen. That's the first one. So at this stage, your business manager has one employee or admin, and that's you. So this is the home screen of Business Manager that you see. Now let's talk about the next step, which is adding employees. So again, who do you want to be in your organization? Okay, let's talk about this in terms of adding employees. There are different levels of access that can get a little bit confusing. And I actually, in the research that I've been doing for the fourth lesson that we're going to go through, talking to a ton of agencies and huge agencies and saying, what are the main points of confusion? And this is really one of the main areas right here. So there's 3 levels of access. There's business manager, admins, and employees. There's ad account admins, managers, and then there's page admin and manager. Okay. So there's 3 different levels to this. It's what Facebook in professional trainings, when they do this and go to agencies, I've been in some of these. I was in New York and one in early June, and they walk through these with larger agencies, and they actually say, they call it the 3-tier system. So there's business manager employees, right? So who's connected into that business manager, okay? And then who under your organization are you connecting to the pages and to ad accounts and to other assets, right? That you would have under your business manager. So just kind of remember this as we walk through it. So business manager admins, okay, control assets within the business manager. Business manager employees can work on assets within the business manager. Okay, so the admins control it and the employees can work on stuff, right? Because you assign them to it, and you can assign employees assets. Okay, so you basically, there's 3 layers. So you got to bring them in, then you got to bring in your assets, and then you got to assign them to your employees. So important on this is business manager should mirror the organizational structure that you have. Think first about that organization before you begin adding different assets into your business manager. Who needs to be connected to these things? Who needs to be able to modify and change things regularly? So again, this is, I know that you've heard me say this a couple of times now about building in the organization and how you view that, but that's really an important part of it. So to begin adding your employees, hit the business settings button. And a lot of what we're going to do here actually today centers on what lies after clicking that business settings button. Okay, so here we are. So it opens this new window and it opens a new tab and it brings you into the business settings screen. So this is the control center of Business Manager. This is really where the main actions of things are taking place and where we can connect and disconnect and add and take away all different types of things. Okay. So by default, since you're the creator, the business manager, you're also an administrator. So now it's time to decide who are the people you'd like to be in charge of the business manager and all that comes with it. So usually, as we talked about a little bit in lesson 1, that includes business owners or partners. And then usually this includes employees who have dedicated time and bandwidth for business manager. They're a detailed-oriented person and can dive in deep without fears or hesitation. This is definitely a pro tip on the way that I have seen this work the best. You've got to have somebody connected into it who's like, oh yes, I understand. That's the connection level of these things, or that's the asset that we need to add, et cetera. So adding in all those client details takes a little bit of time. We'll talk about that. So that's why that's really important. So who will be the business manager admins? So you can connect in via personal Facebook account or via work email and creation of a new account. So the other thing is that assigned employees can have varying levels of access on different assets, right? So you might want to say, I want to bring somebody in, but I want to make them an admin on this account, but not on this account. I only want to make them an analyst on this account. And we'll talk about how you properly do that. But that's kind of talking about adding in those employees. So if you wanted to add some new people, basically you are here in the business manager and you hit add new people. All right, so once you click on that button, it brings up the ability to add another admin or employee and lays out clearly what each of them, kind of what levels of access they have. So this is what it looks like. So it basically says, okay, are they an employee? It can be assigned to other pages, ad accounts, business assets, and view business settings, or are they an admin, right? So you can add and remove employees, permissions, et cetera. So that's an important thing. An employee can't add in things. They can be connected to them. And you'll kind of notice some of these other nuances, like, the admins are the only ones that can really manage permissions properly. So it's an important thing that has actually quite a bit of responsibility to it, and can really be time consuming, which is why I mentioned what I said before. All right. So let's say we're adding those employees. So once you start to do that, I'm just going to go back a second. Let's say you had put in that where it says Roger at my company, Jane at my company. So let's say you'd put in an employee. Okay. So the first thing, and I put in my business partner and wife, Gracie. So I put in her email, and what it does is it actually walks you through the screens that you can see from left to right. So it says, okay, if there are pages that are active in your business manager, it'll say, which of these do you want to add Gracie to? It'll say in the middle one, which ad accounts do you want to add that person to? And then the final one is under product catalogs. So this happens, you can skip this and you can do this later, or you can add these assets to people as they get brought into your ads manager. It'll tell you then once you're done, you've invited this person into Foxwell Digital Test or whatever your business manager name is, and you've assigned them these different assets. Now, I don't have any assets yet, so I didn't add Gracie to any of them. But this is something that you could easily do if you wanted to. So to kind of walk you through that, which is really nice, and walk you through that flow. So that's the first part about adding employees. So think about all the different roles in your organization and where people want to be plugged in. So I think a lot of us as digital marketers, what we think about is, okay, you know what? Andrew is managing the ad account, and John is an admin, and those are the people that we really need to be connected in here. Maybe we have a production person, or I have an employee of my company, but I don't need to bring in, I don't want to complicate things too much for people. But what a lot of people don't understand, including massive agencies all the way down to small businesses, is content creators need access to the Facebook page and the ads account. So if you have people that are, let's say, creating content on your Facebook page, the proper way to give them access would be under Business Manager. I can't tell you the number of times I've worked with a small business or even a medium-sized business, and they have an admin or somebody that they brought in the old way that they're connected to their Facebook page, as we kind of talked about before, and there creates a lot of mess, and they're not connected into Business Manager properly. What happens if that person leaves and starts to, post something bad like we talked about in our example in lesson 1. So you can give your content creators access to the Facebook page and the ads account. Another thing that I really like to do is that some of us have these people that are CRM managers or they're data people, right? And they have an incredible amount of knowledge on data. And what they'll do is you'll email them and say, hey, I would love the recent email list for a custom audience, right? And I want to maybe create a lookalike audience off of that. Well, with that, what happens is with CRM manager kind of people or data people is they'll say, well, I don't want to share this over email. Can I send you a Dropbox? And then you download a huge file and then have to upload it. An easier way to keep this up is one kind of pro tip on standard operating procedure that I really like is if you want in your organization to be constantly updating information in lists. Let's say you have an agency that has record, your Shopify. You can, give an employee of different parts of your organization access to only be able to come in there and update some of the custom audiences under your ads account. You don't have to give them page level access. They don't have to have the ability to post, but you can bring them in to update some of your data, which is actually pretty awesome. So for example, even in like Pixel installation, we have given some Pixel access. So we've given access to the ads account and the Facebook pixel to some developers and said, here's all the things that you need. I can email this to you, but also let me just connect you into it and give you the native tools to connect in there. Another thing is the art department. Maybe they're going to want to mock something up in the Facebook Creative Hub, which is a tool that we're going to talk about next week, which allows you to mock up ad creative, not in a live ad set, which is like how insane, right? How many of us have done that for so long? So there's a Facebook Creative Hub that does that for us, and I'll show you what that's like next week. It's really an awesome tool. So you can give access to them when you're concepting things, or if you're an agency and you say, what do you think? Or even if you're a business and you say, you know what, I want to share this with my business partners. I want to give them kind of a look at what it's like and mock it up. You can add them in as under Facebook Creative Hub and give them access that way. And one that's just incredibly important, finance department. They might want access to that billing and receipts so they don't have to ask you for it every time, and you can totally do that. Totally reasonable thing to do. So I think it can really help your organization run more efficiently when you think about not just, I need my digital marketers to have access to this, but I also want to have other parts of my organization there. And the thing is that, they could either check out some of this Pixel training, or you could transfer some of this knowledge to them and, kind of bring things in and hopefully save you a little bit more time as well. So there's not as much riding on you. So once an employee is added, you can then assign them assets via the Assign Assets menu, or you can add them at the page ad account level. Okay, so, all right, so basically you can, once they're brought in, you can see Gracie is there under people, right? So she's pending. She hadn't accepted my request to join the organization yet, but you can add them in via the page or account level and bring them in and hit and say Assign Assets, and then you can bring them in that way. We'll talk about this. So there's recipe for success, the 3 A's, right? The first one is add employees and admins to your business manager. So you got to get them in. Then the second level is assign the assets, such as ad accounts and pages, via those individual menus. So you just, again, click on that, say Assign Assets, and you just select which asset you've brought in. And we'll talk about this more, by the way, as the lesson goes on. And then you assign yourself a pat on the back. So that's really the third level of the 3 A's of success. You brought them in and you've given them access to what they need to. Now, here's a little known factor about a little thing called the primary page. All right, so before you begin adding any assets, actually, you must first add what's called a primary page. This is intended to be the main account that most closely represents your business. Okay, so this is the one that basically you want to bring in to say, yes, this is my business. This is the page that's assigned to this. This is Facebook's quote on this, that your business needs a primary page to request access to pages, ad accounts, and other assets that belong to their business. Basically, it verifies that you are of good standing. So, and it also verifies kind of the business that you work for. So this is a good kind of connection point. You have to say, yep, that's my Facebook page. And if there's, things that happen within the business manager or the page itself, they have connection to that through that. So you have to have a primary page, and the matching allows really for that verification. So you have to ensure that you're the owner of at least one page. All right. So the first thing you got to do, you got to come in and you've got to go to the pages menu and you've got to click on add a page. All right. So you got to add a page, and we'll talk about the different levels of adding, requesting, and creating a new page. But first of all, you've got to add a page. Now, I just started typing in, and we'll talk more about this, The Land of Milk and Uncle Honey. This is a Facebook page I own. It's a book that my wife and her dad wrote, and I hit add page. So what that did is it said, since you're already an admin on this page, okay, your request was approved automatically. So you must select add to bring it in, own the page. Since you own it, it'll likely be immediately approved, and then you'll have your primary page. So that's the first thing you got to do. After adding employees, you got to make sure that you bring in a primary page. The other thing is be sure that you own it. So you've got to own it because technically you can add other pages that you are connected to, but you may not own, and that can create a little bit of confusion. So be sure you own it. If it hasn't been claimed into another business manager, you can accidentally sometimes claim a page into your business manager as a primary page, which creates a little bit of issue. And there are ways to get around that. We'll talk about that in lesson 4 if you do run into that, to make sure you don't have to. But I heard that was one of the most common things that somebody had done on another mastermind with Business Manager that people had said that was an issue. So we'll get into that, but be sure that you really own that page, right? That you are not just an admin and it's somebody else's business. All right, so I'm going to talk about adding assets now into the page. So you're going to go back to pages. You're going to go to add new pages. All right, and you can see you have the choices here to add a page. You can request access to a page, and you can create a new page. All right, so there's different levels of connection that we have. Okay, so there's the add, the request, and create a new. All right, so let's talk about the differences between these. Adding a page adds the Facebook page permanently to your Business Manager account. This is a great option for your company-owned page. That's really usually your primary page. So adding a page adds that in to the Business Manager account. All right. The thing is, once it's been added into the Business Manager, it cannot be reversed. As I said, there's a small loophole that does allow you to do that, but it's kind of trickery. So just know that if you're going to add a page in, you have to make sure that this is really something that you own. Requesting access to a page keeps the original owner, but allows you access. So that seems like a good option, and that's one that is a great option, one we'll talk about. And then creating a new page, right? That creates a new one. Amazing, right? It's a brand new page. So 99% of the time, you'll request access to a page, especially for those of you that are out there that are agencies. That's what you're going to be doing. You're going to request access. Now, if you are if you're a business owner and you only have one page, totally fine. You've added that in, and you don't necessarily need to worry about that. So actually, what you do is you begin by, once you request access, so you go back. I'm going to actually jump back in my slides here just so you can see this. And actually, you can see here, so you click on Add New, and you hit Request Access to a page. All right, so I'm going to zoom through this. So you zoom through that, and you begin by typing the name of the page you would like to request access to. And if you haven't actually chosen that primary page yet, it'll ask you to select the one you just set up. Once you've done that, it'll populate the name, URL, and image of that page. So I started typing in Foxwell Digital here. And what it did is it said, okay, is this the one you meant? I clicked on it, and then it says, select the role you need on the page. So you can actually see what each of these things do. And we'll talk about that and what the breakdowns of them are. So you can select which one you'd like access to. Okay. I typically recommend requesting page admin or page editor privileges. Now, we talked about this in last week's lesson about editor and admins and why you really got to be careful who is a business manager admin, but I think it's totally okay to make your agency, a admin, or a page editor. In most cases, an editor is going to get to allow you to do pretty much everything you need to do. So that'll give you the most control. But the nice thing about an admin is that it does allow you a little bit more access around certain Instagram connections and some of the product catalog and pixel things. So once you've submitted your request, the client will approve you, or if you're already an admin, you'll be automatically approved. So here's a little pro tip that I like to use is sometimes people will say, you might be an agency and somebody will say, hey, I'd really like you to take a look at the account. And what you can do is you can actually, once you're done with this course, you can send it over to them and say, hey, connect in with my business manager. And here's my business manager ID, and we'll talk about that. And then I'll say, just give me analyst permissions. And you can see the lowest one on here, and you can kind of look at some page insights and in the analyst one, but out having kind of the control of being able to post content. So you get a little peek under the hood. So once you've set Andrew, up a page.
A quick question, if I can get for just a little quick clarification for everybody. So looking at adding a page versus requesting access, I mean, are you basically saying if you own the page, you should add it? Or is there a reason why you'd ever request access to a page you own?
No, not usually, no. But there could be things that you would want to request access at, let's say, maybe you'd have 2 different locations or something like that, right? And so you have a business manager that's for one location. You could see how this would work out, and you'd say, I want to request access to the master page, but I want it in my business manager, right. But I don't necessarily want it I don't want it to be owned by my business manager. There's a master corporate business manager or something like that. So that's a very small nuance, but in most cases, they would be going exactly with what you're talking about.
Yeah. So essentially, though, if you don't own it, you're always going to be requesting access.
Yeah, pretty much. Requesting access is the easiest way to get access. And you can actually, we'll talk about this, you can kind of request access, or actually, you can ask the owner of that to say, hey, give me access. And so you can do it in 2 ways. You can request, or you can ask them to add you via the business manager ID. So it's really about a personal preference around what you'd want to do.
All right, thanks. Continue.
Great clarification, John. So once you've set up a page, you'll want to invite the various employees you want to work on that asset. So you've got that page, then you get to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to bring people in. So there's my Foxwell Digital, and you could hit add people, and the employees that are there, you get to select, and then you hit save. So you get to say, yep, I want to make sure that these people have access to this asset that I've brought in. Pretty easy to understand. That's why employees and giving them access is important right away. So under overview on the page roles, this is something probably a lot of you already know, but an important one I just wanted to say is that actually admins and editors, moderators can now respond to Instagram and delete Instagram comments, which is cool. That's a brand new deal. So something really to kind of think about if you kind of continue to integrate Instagram into your strategy. All right, so let's talk about adding assets with your ad account. So very similar process. All right. So you go ahead, you're in your business manager, you hit add accounts, and you hit add new ad accounts. And you can see you have the exact same options. You have request access, or you have add or create a brand new one. So most of the time you'll be requesting access to an ad account. That's very common. And you can also create a new one, which allows you to set things up in the billing properly. So, you can hit that new one and create a brand new one from scratch. That's something that an agency would commonly do. This is where the friend of mine who I talked about last week, who said, hey, I don't know why I have to be personal friends with my clients on Facebook to get them brought in. You don't. You can actually create a new ad account for them, and you could ask them for their financial credit card information to get that connected. So that's very common in terms of creating a brand new one. Okay, so basically you'll see 2 different screens depending on if you want to add account to own it forever or request. Okay, so you can, if you have that ad account, you can say, all right, you know what? I have my ad account. I know my ad account ID. You find that in the URL of your Facebook ads account. So if you're ever in your ads account, which many of you are, you can take that ID and copy that in here. There's, there also the ad ID is in the settings of that. It's in 3 or 4 different places. So you can take that ad ID and you can plug it in. The other thing is you can request access. So you can actually say, all right, you know what, maybe I don't own it, but I'm going to request access, and a client will say, hey, my ad account ID, here it is. And so you can ask them for that and you can request access into it, or potentially a different part of your organization. So you can type that in and hit confirm. Now, let's just talk about this a little bit. Their ad account admin, it'll say, all right, there's 3 different things that you can request access for if you did do that, right? You can say, I want to have ad account admin privileges, and I can manage all aspects of the campaign, creating reports, viewing, editing, billing details, assigning account roles. You can do an advertiser, so they can see and edit ads, set them up. They can't make a lot of changes at that account level, so they really can't do anything from a macro level. And then there's the analyst, so that can view ad performance, can't make changes. So this is another common thing that we like to do, is kind of request that analyst idea there with their Facebook ad ID and say, all right, you know what? I'd like to get in there and get my hands dirty. All right, so a reminder, once you've set up your ad account, just like your page, you want to invite the employees you want to work on that asset via the Add People button. So you can go into the ad account, hit Add People, and then you can bring in that employee. So you could see how already through this lesson we are, getting into it, and you've gotten set up with your people on your business manager, which is awesome. You got your employees in there. You've brought in your pages and assigned your people to them, and then you brought in your ad accounts and you assigned people to them. So that is pretty awesome. Now, let's talk about requesting versus adding and why you'd want to do that. Okay, if you're an agency or a consultant, this information particularly is for you. Okay, there's 2 main ways to gain access to that client account that you'll use most of the time. So this is going further into a little bit more of the nuance around this. Request access to the page or ad account, or the client can also do, as I just said to John, they can assign you as a partner via their page, okay, or ad account or other asset. So you can say, hey, I want to request access to this, or you can say, hey, can you assign me using my business manager ID? There's no different in the end result, only in the process. So it depends on how you feel kind of your client would more easily do it. Now, here's a super grainy video, but you can see I went and hit, I'm going to start this over again. So basically you can see that I actually requested access to a page and started typing in John's, and I can hit that request access button. So I hit request access and I started typing in John Limmer Digital, and you can request access. Now, John's clearly not going to approve me because we're not that close. I mean, he's not going to give me access to his page, but that's how you actually can do that. So that's how easy it is sometimes for you to request access. Now, if you request access, so you go to your client, you say, I want to request access to your page, the user will need to confirm that request. And it comes in most commonly under the notifications and requests on Business Manager. So you can see there's the requests piece there, right? And you can see that there is that little globe in the upper right corner with notifications. Facebook has definitely, there's been a few little bugs in here. This is some of the mastermind mastery piece here. There have been a few bugs in it, and I'll say most commonly it's under the requests. So sometimes the notifications don't pick it up, but then they can confirm your request, and then you're good to go. Now, if a client wants to assign you as a partner, you'll need them to provide your business manager, or you'll need to provide your business manager ID to them. Okay, so when you come into your business manager in any of these screenshots, you can see this is the business manager ID that's in the URL. Now, this is also under settings, but it's most easily seen in the URL, in my opinion. So basically, you can say, all right, keep that handy. So you can basically take that business manager ID and you can say, here it is. And I actually, if you wouldn't mind, you can assign me into your business manager. So you can basically have that person that can, and we'll walk through this. I promise this will make sense in a second. But basically, you can put the onus on them. So at what we do at Foxwell Digital is we actually have the client, we send them an instructional piece where it says, all right, from your page and from your ad account that's already in your business manager, go ahead and assign access or assign partner, and then they put in that information. So we'll walk through that as time goes on, but actually gives them a step-by-step screens of how to do that. So the user can also assign access and provide you with a URL via email. So that's another thing. There's 3 different ways to do this. One is you can request access. Okay, client approves you. Second way is client can add you as a partner within your business manager ID. So with that business manager ID, they can add you as a partner. And the client can also send you a URL via email, depending on what level of access they want you to have. Okay. The easiest way, as I said, in my opinion, is to have the client add you as a partner via the business manager ID. It helps the client to navigate and understand their business manager easier. And it helps them kind of get to the point a lot quicker. So that's something that I'll say. So let's say you wanted to do, okay, I want to connect a partner to ad accounts. I'm going to start this video over, and these look a lot greener, so I apologize, but I can send these screenshots separately for you. But you can connect partner, and you could say assign partner in the upper right corner, and you can say add account, and then you could see here where it says select a role, and you could say add account admin, and you can also hit connect your ad account using a link instead. So you can put in the business ID there, or you can use the link. So you have 2 different options there. Again, I'll include these screenshots for you and have a couple more instructional videos because I want to make sure that you guys get that. It's a really important point that I'll send over or that will be there for when you want to go in and download. But the easiest way is just to basically put it on them and say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, please just signing me as a partner. That would be the best. So there's 3-step process for adding partners. Assign partner, okay? And they must own the page or ad account they're assigning the partner on, okay? If they're unable to assign a partner, it's because they don't own it or they're not a full owner of that asset, okay? But let's say I wanted to assign a partner. Then there's the role assigning. So this is getting into more out of what I'm talking about. You could connect a partner and you could see you select which level of access they want. So you can say, all right, I want to make this person an admin, and you can copy that link. So you can, have them send it to you that way. That's very easy. Or you can see that there's the select a role and then it says business manager ID. So if you look at the top screenshot on the left, connect your page using your partner's business ID instead, you can do one or the other. Doesn't really matter. You can choose which way, but the one I prefer is the one on the bottom where they connect you using the business ID. So I send it over as Foxwell Digital. They copy that in, they connect it, and they give me whichever level of access I have requested. And then you can accept it. So actually, when you get access, if they assign you this way, you actually can go into your business manager, and it actually automatically appears within your pages or your ad account, which is really, really helpful. So automatically appears there and makes that a lot easier. And then a client doesn't have to go back and actually hit requests and accept. So makes that quite a bit easier. That basically, as talked about, it'll appear in the business manager, also appears in the request. So you can go into both places. You can check it out in the requests. It can also appear automatically, and you can accept. So once the page or ad account's in there, you're able to find it, and then you can add yourself and your employees. The process is the same for an ad account or a page. So no difference there on adding a partner. As long as you have that business manager ID, you will be good to go. And actually, the process is the same for gaining access to other assets like the product catalog or Instagram. So that is super great. Once you know how to do this, and I realize that what we went through today and what we're going through today is really, really heavy. There's a lot of stuff in here, right? There's a ton of details of this. And so I personally understand, and I know that it's going to probably take kind of going through this yourself. I'm a visual learner, so I have to, go through this myself to make sure I fully understand it. But I have, made sure that these are the best instructions I could provide to you, of basically giving you the options so you know of how you can kind of gain access, if you want to different assets, and making sure that that's as seamless as possible for you. So let's talk about your homework assignment for this. So before next week, if you can claim a primary page, I think that's super, super helpful. Number 2, add in at least one employee. All right. So add in somebody in there and into the business manager and see what happens. Connect an ad account where either you could request access, you could do something differently. You could send someone your business manager ID, send it over, make sure you find it and say, hey, this is my business manager ID. Figure out which one you'll be using. Are you going to request? Or are you going to add? Or are you going to claim? I mean, you could, who knows what you're thinking. So which one are you going to do? Are you going to maybe add a new one, even create a new one? So what's next? What are we going to talk about next week? We are going to go into every single option available to you in Facebook's Business Manager. So we just talked about how to add in things and how to do some of the primary functions that you have. But Business Manager does so much more that many people don't even know. So we're going to talk about navigating and saving you time with confidence, how you can navigate through and really get into there with confidence. Sharing audiences. So this is really where you're going to be able to say, okay, look, I want to share these audiences across accounts. I want to share my custom audiences, etc. And talk about the pixel, how to share that and customize that across accounts. And that's really, really, really helpful. We're going to talk about the product catalog, making sure that you're adding in that Instagram account the right way, understanding the full history of things, and grouping all the assets into projects. So we're going to make sure that by the end of the third lesson of next week, that you are going to have basically a full knowledge of not only how to get set up and how to make sure that things are set up the right way and you're gaining access to the things the right way, but you're also going to have an understanding of what every single button is and why it really matters. So that is going to be a ton of fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. That's some really, really good stuff in there. We'll get to your questions here in just a minute. Just a couple things real quick. Those of you who haven't participated in the Facebook Pixel 4-week training program, the next run of that starts next week. There will not be overlap between the two programs. So if you sign up for both, the Pixel program actually occurs 2 hours earlier on Tuesdays until this Business Manager program is done, if that makes any sense. So I believe it's 1 p.m. Eastern for the first 2 lessons and then back to 3 p.m. Eastern for the final 2. So to learn more about that, you can go to johnlimber.com/Facebook-pixel-training. And just a few details here. There are 4 lessons within that program. Starts with an introduction to the Facebook Pixel, traffic, website custom audiences. One of my favorite topics is talking about creating website custom audiences out of the traffic you get to your website. Third lesson is custom conversions and events. And the final, optimization, tracking, and strategy. So it's another deep, deep topic that we've run this program now dating back to February. So 6 times, I believe. So it's a well-oiled machine at this point. So johnlimber.com/Facebook-pixel-training. Dates and times, just again, for clarification. And if you can't make it, recordings will be available. First lesson next Tuesday, September 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Second lesson a week later at 1 p.m. again. And then the final 2 lessons, if I can get those to come up, will be at 3 p.m. Eastern. All right. So it is Q&A time. I know we've got lots of questions in here, so let's see what we've got. Toby says, sometimes I hit limits on adding multiple ad accounts to Business Manager. Tricky to manage more than 4 ad accounts on one Business Manager. I know we've talked about this before, Andrew, but
yeah.
And Toby, we might need some more details from you, but I mean, what is it you've seen, Andrew, in terms of anyone who runs into those kinds of limits?
Toby, I tell you, you shouldn't have any limits. If you do have limits, just um, so Facebook said in the first lesson we covered this actually, and they said, look, you shouldn't have any limits. That's a bug. So if you're still running into to ad account limits, go ahead and actually email me. To be honest with you, Andrew at foxwelldigital.com. I can help you with that because that's a bug. So you should you should have the ability to add more. So that's an issue, and we can kind of look into that further.
Great. So Anna asks, is it safe to assume that you as an admin and not a page creator can only request access to a page? The reason me asking is when you're given a page and you would link it to your business manager. Are you following that?
Go ahead and just read it again.
So is it safe to assume that you as the admin and not a page creator can only request access to a page?
Okay, so you as an admin of the business manager, you should be able to request access to a page. So I'm not totally sure of the question, honestly. But if you're an employee in the business manager, I mean, specifically, you have to really be an admin. But if you're an admin, you can request access in there to any sort of asset that you're trying to get. If you own the page, basically, it's not going to, the person that actually is the admin of that page is going to have to approve your access. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Feel free to follow up on that one.
Yeah, and that may be related to the clarification I was asking earlier. I mean, basically, if you own the page, you can add it. In most cases, you'll probably want to add it. Otherwise, you'll request access. But
that's exactly right.
Lauren asks, can you add people within your team to client's page if you only have editor access? Or do you need to be an admin on the page to do this?
So if you are properly an admin on the page via the business manager, you would need, and you want to add in other people in your organization. It's easiest if you're an admin. Sometimes business manager will let you if you're the next level down of access, but it's easier if you're an admin. So even if the client, if you say, look, I don't need to be an admin full time, but I'm let's say a page editor or something, just say, hey, temporarily, can you guys make me an admin and I can add in some of my people? That's one way to do it. Easiest way is just to be an admin so that you can kind of have access to that and remove things a lot easier. So that makes it much more simple. Once you're an admin on that asset, you can remove and mess with the team members how you like. As long as you're it makes it a lot easier as well if you're an admin on your business manager too. So that's important to think about. If you're going to be a person that's adding and taking away assets and doing a lot of things in your organization, it's probably important for you to be an admin on the business manager, and that'll make things a lot more simple.
Good. All right. Lots of questions. I think it's Michael. When you request access to a page or ad account, you mentioned it appears in their business manager. This would imply that the client needs to have business managers set up as well. Yeah. So if they're not yet set up, make sure you help them get that set up.
Yeah, and that's an annoying thing. It does require that they have access to it. Actually, what will happen if they don't, just to give you an idea, is if you request access, what'll happen is if a client's managing it via, let's say their page settings, let's just take that for example, is it will under the people or connections kind of page roles area within a page, it'll say Foxwell Digital is requesting access to this, and they can actually technically grant access to an agency without being part of Business Manager. However, I think you're going to sort of alleviate a lot of other issues later by not having it that way. So, yeah.
Anna goes on to ask, also, if you need to remove a page from your business manager as you are no longer managing it, can you easily do that? I know that you had mentioned that it's definitely tricky if you add a page and then trying to remove it, but there's like a back end way. But
so the first part is basically if it's in there and you want to get rid of it, can you remove it?
Yeah, from your business manager.
Yeah, if you're an admin of the business manager, you can absolutely do that. You can get rid of things and say disconnect access on it, and that's not an issue.
Jeff says, if the client does not have Business Manager, what's the easiest way to get access to their ad account and page? Although I don't know if that's necessarily what you'd want to do, Jeff. I think we want to get them set up with Business Manager. But what do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, I totally understand your question, and I think there's two things. One is if you wanted to request access to both, and you want it, and you didn't want to run through having to set them up on Business Manager. You can technically do that, right? You can request access to the page. They would be able to accept it in the page roles, and the ad account itself, there's a way to technically accept basically that person being a part of it. But I'll tell you, in the long term, for you, the easiest thing to do if you're an agency or somebody that's running ads, Business Manager isn't going to go away. And Facebook is rolling out an incredible amount of changes to the Business Manager platform and is putting a lot of stuff there. So this includes Facebook Analytics, like we talked about. This includes asset management. This includes Creative Hub. I mean, you can really go on and on about where they're putting things there. So it's important, I think, in the long term, if you're going to be somebody that's managing ad accounts and managing Facebook ads and digital marketing for people, that it's important that you have that. And I will tell you, seriously, feel free, you guys, to take screenshots of this presentation, recreate it on your own and use this and send it to clients, because the best practice, as I talked about in the first lesson, is really those agencies that have a standard operating procedure as part of their onboarding, where they say, hey, can you walk through, here's the steps, right? Set it up this way, go through and name your business manager, go through and create the employees, go through and add the page. And if that person does that, like I said, it takes 15 minutes to get them set up, and then you are connected as a partner, and it creates so many better things, right? You then have access to better Facebook support. You're able to easily connect and disconnect things. You're able to help a client out with their pixel issue easily. Like, there's just a lot of things that you're going to be able to have. So that is really something that I would encourage you to think about, even if they don't have Business Manager. I'm sorry I went on a little diatribe there. I got a little excited, so I apologize for getting a little bit too excited.
Yeah. So Jules, I may need, we may need clarification on this, but she asked, sorry if this has been mentioned before, but can you change ownership of a page? So I just want to make sure, first of all, Jules, that you are referring to a Facebook page and not referring back to Business Manager again, or are you talking about, again, might need clarification. She goes on to say all but one of our brand pages is owned by us. I'm not clear if you're referring to the connection to the Business Manager. So like when Andrew was talking about adding certain pages, I mean, multiple business managers can have access to multiple pages, right? So just because if
it's all via requested access as a partner, like we talked about today, absolutely. You can, of course, you can have an admin and you can get rid of another admin if there's one admin, right? There has to be an admin, so you can technically change owners. The answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, okay. Dave,
great questions, everybody. Yeah, just loving these. So thank you.
Here's a good one from David. How do I switch the assigned primary page from one page to another page I own?
Oh man. Okay. So this is we're going to get into this in lesson 4. Okay. So it's a little hack, but what it requires is, I won't go into it now, but it requires that you basically, that you have another page in there, and then you basically make that one the primary page. So you have to have multiple in there. A lot of times what people do if they're trying to get rid of it is like, I want to have a different primary page. They'll create a temporary page that's not real, which is not a best practice. So we'll talk about the way to do that in the right way as time goes on, but it's a great question.
May need more clarification from Brian on this one, but he asked, when linking Instagram, would that be as a separate profile or a branch of an existing profile? Not real sure what he means by branch of an existing, but I mean, You want to cover the Instagram portion of that again?
Yeah, so next week we're going to talk about Instagram, which is just raise the roof. It's going to be sweet. And how that works basically with Instagram is there's different ways to do it. A person can assign you as a partner under their IG account. You can also have them have an Instagram account actually in your business manager. So there's a couple different ways to do it, and then you can kind of assign things from there. So Facebook clearly is actually figuring this part out. It's actually kind of funny. We will all collectively have a good laugh at the Book of Face, like next week talking about Instagram, the way that because it's a little bit wonky, but it's really, really, it's really helpful because once it's in the business manager and you assign it to an account properly, a whole bunch of great things happen. You can, you can advertise through that much more easily. If you automatically have Instagram selected under a placement, let's say an ads manager, it'll automatically make sure that that's the right Instagram account that's being targeted and not your Facebook page. And so that's really helpful.
And I think we already answered this question, but just to make sure Charity knows we're listening. She asked, can an agency with a business manager account request access to clients' assets if they don't have business manager? Right, so going back to that, they don't have business manager status.
Yes, yeah, good question. Same answer as before. So you can, but we would recommend having that they would have it. So.
Let me see here. Okay. Laura says, our business owns multiple hotels in various locations. Each location has their own Facebook page, but our brand page, which I own, is the primary page for our business manager. This is the only page connected to that business manager as of now. We connected our agencies to that business manager when we run ad campaigns. Would it make sense from an organizational standpoint to begin adding the other location pages to that same business manager? Is that a bad idea because each location has a different audience demographic? Long question.
So into this question. I wish I was on video. I'm this is great. I'm not trying to be weird or overexcited. It's just this is why we did this. So to your question, the answer to your question is yes. Having them in the business manager, especially for you as somebody that's the corporate connection, right? And there's these other pieces to it. You're clearly brought in the agencies and they have access to your ad accounts, which is great. That's fine. That is the right way to do it. Now, in terms of the pages, bringing them in is absolutely the right way to do it. And there is a process called global pages, which we are going to talk about in the 4th lesson, that actually creates kind of a master page and then other pages that are below that, and allows some interesting sort of content sharing options and allows some permission sharing options and allow some pieces for exactly what you are talking about. I worked with actually a massive hotel chain on this particular question. So it's important that I think bringing them in is the first thing to do, because if nothing else, right, you have access to them and the people that already have access aren't going to lose access. So it just helps you to kind of have a better eye on what's happening. And we'll talk about that in the 4th lesson with really that global pages option. But the answer is yes.
Good question, Laura. I think, again, this is referring to Instagram, so we might be talking about this in the future. How do I get added to Instagram accounts? Do I need the username and password for my clients? I assume Instagram account.
So you can, we'll talk about that next week, but you can have access to their Instagram account by requesting their username and password. You can also request it and not need the access. But in my opinion, it does make it easier if you do have that in there. So we'll talk about that, how to kind of bring that in. But ultimately, there's many nuances around the Instagram account handle.
Amelia says, myself and the other person manage social media for our bank and mortgage company. We manage the corporate accounts, and we recently allowed about 100 LOs to set up business manager or business pages to do marketing out of. A lot of them want to do advertising. We're trying to figure out how to manage the advertising portion. We do have a business manager account for the corporate pages, but we can't figure out the best way to run ads for the individual employees. Hope that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. Let me tell you, I just talked to my friend Josh, who is works at American Family Insurance, and he is actually got told by Facebook that he is connected to more Facebook pages than anybody in the history of connections. Under Business Manager, he's connected to over 3,800 Facebook pages.
What?
Because of all the American Family Insurance agents and agencies around the country. There's not that many. There's not, I don't think there's 3,800, but he's connected to a whole bunch of other things. And each of them have their own ad accounts. So this is exactly what we helped them solve. So one of the things that they did is that each of these agents, so in LOs, I assume you mean loan officer, what we did is we actually had each of them, they created their own ad accounts. So they either created them the traditional way of, the way that you would start an ad account, or the corporate office created an ad account for them and assigned them as a person under the business manager. The easiest way to do it was to have them to create their own, say, all right, look, this is your own deal, assign your own credit card information and things to that. Keep running it the way that you want to run it. And what we request is we're going to request access to the ad account, and we're going to request access to mostly just the analyst position. Or the analyst position, like the lower level of access, and just so you can basically have the proper way to kind of get connected. So basically, you could basically say, look, I want to be able to take a gander in the ad account. I want to be able to check things out, but I don't necessarily need to be able to make changes in the ad account. Now you might want to be able to do that, but yeah, that's the easiest thing to do is basically say, look, you are the loan officer, you're your own organization, run it on your own business manager, and what you can either request access, or you can say, hey, to your loan officers, look, here's our business manager ID. Please assign us as a editor or moderator or whatever you want, not moderator on the ad account, but an analyst, and just please assign us as an analyst. And that's an easy way to do it, to kind of keep tabs on things.
It's a great question, Amelia. Lauren goes on to ask, will the client be able to see the employees you add to their ad account and assets, or are they hidden under your business manager ID as sometimes it might not be appropriate for the client to see the individual working on assets or campaigns?
Yeah, they just see that you're the agency connected. They don't see the name of the person. So that's a great question.
Good. Alyssa asks, weren't you going to show us how to change the ad account page name? When did we talk
The
about
ad
that?
account page name. Yes, the ad account page name in terms of navigation, we touched on that a little bit, and we can totally talk about how to do that. What I'll do is include a screenshot on that in the notes afterwards on changing the ad account name for navigational purposes. But essentially, here's how you do it. I'll just tell you. Is if you, for navigational purposes, are looking for this, so this is actually the first part of next week, so it's really exciting, but we'll sneak peek, if you will. You click on that ad account that you are an admin of, and you want to name it. There's, to the right of that ad account, there's a number, and there's a little pencil to the ad account. So you're in Business Manager, ad accounts on the left side, click on the ad account you're an admin of. It says the ad account that's sitting in your Business Manager has a little pencil. You can click on that and you can rename it. And so that's how you do that. That's a huge time saver for me. So that's how you do it. But we'll talk about that early next week as well.
Yeah. So if we're going to talk about that next week, we won't need screen grabs for this week. We'll talk about that next week. Jeff says, I have access to another business account that has one page, but it's not designated as a primary page. So would like to know how to assign that page as a primary. Maybe this is in settings. So I think I think
It is. It is. You just select that page and then you say assign as primary page. Yeah. So if you want to assign it, that's the way you do that.
Jules goes on to say, this might have been clarification from the prior question. I'm in Business Manager and I see that we have a primary page and 3 other Facebook pages connected. Our Greenland Facebook page says that individual people own this. I need to find out who owns it because this happened before I joined the company. Just want to make sure the company owns it and not an individual. You
Hmm.
familiar with that?
Interesting question. So I get your concern. You're saying, look, that this was created before. So what I would do is, so I guess a question I would have back is, are you connected into that then as an employee, or it sits in the business manager? So clearly you have access to that. Is the business manager that you're in, is that the corporate business manager? Because uh, if that's the corporate business manager, um, technically what I would do is make sure that you have the people that are under the business manager that have access to it are correct, and then the people that are connected to it as individuals, that those people have kind of the correct permissions. A lot of times, as we talked about in lesson one, there's a lot of employees that were pages were created, and there's people that are, employees of this organization that have access as admins to Facebook pages that actually should not be admins. So I would kind of do a cleanup on that and check. I think that would be really important. So it sounds like you're not super far off, but that's a way that I would check. You could look at basically the individual page. You could go to the page settings and page roles of that actual individual page and look at the permissions. And then I would check kind of and clean that up. And then I would also look at it from the business manager angle. I think the best practice, if Facebook were on the phone, what they would say is add those employees as add employees of the organization, and then assign them via business manager for easier access.
Toby asked, best browser to use with Business Manager. Does it matter now? I mean, Power Editor used to be Chrome only, and it's not anymore.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm not aware of it. Are you aware of any restrictions on Business Manager? I'm not.
There is no restriction really, but Chrome is clearly the most stable. I've used Safari and Firefox, and I've not used Internet Explorer actually with it. So no offense. And then, but I've trained people with using Internet Explorer, and it's been fine. So I think I haven't had any real issues. It just seems to operate the fastest on Chrome. I think. Think about who's developing this platform, in Power Editor engineers that I have spoken to and been in contact with, and I'm still in contact with regularly. A lot of these men and women in Menlo Park, California, are clearly using Chrome. So if you think about, kind of the nerds and what they're using, and I think that's what they're designing it for a little bit. So I don't know if there's a huge difference, but I think it's important to point out that it's probably a little faster.
Anna, you had some additional details, follow up. That one might be good for an email because I'm still a little unclear, and I think Andrew might be too. If you want to send it, you just want to have it sent directly to you, Andrew.
Yeah, Anna, if you have a more advanced question or something that we're not picking up on, feel free. Just Andrew at foxwelldigital.com, and I can take a gander.
Michael says, when asking to request access to an ad account, the first option says type your ad account ID and then select the permission level. The question, what actually happens when you hit the confirm button? Does it create a link or something to send to the client?
When you're requesting, what it does is it actually triggers a notification under their requests. So it doesn't give you a URL, unfortunately. Gets a little bit to the requesting is really nice, and I like that option. And but as time goes on, I feel like having them add you as a partner is just so much easier too if you set up that kind of what we talked about, that onboarding piece, just because it's cleaner, and I don't know. I just think it works a little bit better. So anyway, but I do like requesting as well. I mean, it's also easy. So it depends on your preference.
Yeah. All right. David asks, if an agency is assigned admin of a page, do they have the same admin rights of other admins of a page? I.e., can they remove other admins?
That's a great question. The answer is yes. The answer to that is yes.
Might want to be careful.
So yeah. So that's kind of that cautionary tale I was telling you before. I mean, this is sub-level, as I would say, sub-level nerd 5000 here. I mean, this is This is stuff that I don't think even some of the most advanced ad agencies in the country really, or in the world, really understand. But be really careful who you're giving admin access to, especially in the days of, just permissions and things. I mean, just who knows who has two-step authentication set up, etc.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it. So if you have any other questions, just a reminder, we will address questions at the beginning of the third lesson as well. Make sure you do that homework between today and next Tuesday. Otherwise, you got any final words of wisdom there, Mr. Andrew?
No, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And it's really fascinating to hear all of your questions, and it helps me really frame things up. So just wanted to say thank you. And I hope that you guys have an awesome day. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week.
Great. Well, I'll get that link out with the replay and all the extra tidbits here in a few hours. Otherwise, until next time, do awesome things. We're out.